Welcome to FOB TV, the future of business. I want to thank all of you guys for joining us today. I'm your host, Kevin Benedict. I'm a futurist and lecturer here at TCS. And our guest today, and I'm really excited to introduce her, is Haley Price. Haley, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Kevin. So happy to be here.
Haley is the head of sustainability for North America for TCS. So she is right in the middle of this theme that we're running in this series, which is a series on how companies and organizations are responding to and supporting and just running these initiatives around sustainability. So let me just jump in, Haley. Where are you calling in from today?
I'm calling in from beautiful Madison, Connecticut. It's lovely. It's a lovely summer day here. I live very close to the beach, and it's a great day to be talking about sustainability.
Awesome. I'm looking out the window. I'm here in Boise, Idaho today, and it's going to be about 83 degrees today, but it's cloudy, so it's not as hot as it has been for the last few months, actually. So when you hear the word sustainability, Haley, what does it mean to you? And what do you include in that bucket of sustainability?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's a highly personal question. So my answer is pretty personal. It's a journey of personal choices. So for me, it's all the decisions I make in a day that lead up to, conscious decision making over a lifetime, right? So each decision will add up to a sustainable future and just leaving the planet and the place better than we got it. So that's what it means to me.
Now, since you've got out of college, you've had lots of different positions. You've been able to kind of scout, what's out there, what direction do you want to take your career? And now you find yourself in a leadership role in a giant company with over 600,000 employees, and you are head of sustainability for North America. How did you end up there? Tell us about your journey. And why are you, taking this leadership role around sustainability?
Yeah, so I love this because it was surprising even to myself. And first of all, college feels like a heck of a long time ago. And I would have never have thought that this career even existed when I was in college, right? So over 20 years ago. But I was doing sports marketing and events for 20 years. And luckily, TCS is a wonderful place that allows you different growth opportunities. So when I was really evaluating, so I talked about personal choices, right? Sustainability, that journey, personal choices. I really wanted to focus my efforts on more of a personal mission driven career choices. So I about 5 years ago, I kept raising my hand in my sports position. I was like, hey, I want to do some more sustainability work. Kept asking questions. I was an annoying person in meetings, like, how are we being more sustainable here? What are we doing about recycling at various events? What are we doing to measure our carbon footprint for various things? And they're like, Haley, your job is this, X, Y, Z. And I was like, I kept climbing out of my box, right, to do different things and more innovation and sustainability driven projects. And so finally TCS let me out of my sports box and they're like, go play, go explore this area for TCS. We're incredibly committed as a company to the triple bottom line, people, planet, and profit. And so what's exciting about helping our clients grow their sustainable business is that we are absolutely a sustainable business ourselves. So we not only, talk the talk, we walk the walk. And that's been exciting for me in this new position.
Oh, that's terrific. So we talked about what motivated you, but you must talk to a ton of companies out there just in the course of your daily work. What motivates them to support sustainability? We've heard terms like greenwashing and all kinds of stuff where the company's really just leading it. It seems like from a marketing perspective, hey, this will make us look good if we talk about these things. But what do you find that motivates companies out there to really get behind sustainable initiatives?
Yeah, I think, for some companies, it is about the end consumer, right? Consumers are saying that they want their companies to be more sustainable. But for a lot of companies, it's about risk mitigation, finding business efficiencies, and really hitting their bottom line. And what they're realizing now is that sustainable practices are not at odds with running a good, healthy business. In fact, it enables businesses to become regenerative enterprises and actually increase their profits. So I think that's what people are now saying, that it's beyond messaging, it's beyond checking a box. It's really putting these practices into effect to make sure that they're ready for the future.
So we're a technology company here at TCS. That's our bread and butter. So let me ask you, in the course of your work out there, what kind of technologies are really supporting and helping companies better manage their sustainability efforts? We can think of things like AI and digital twins and sensors and simulation models and all this kind of stuff. What are you seeing out there? What are people using that really help advance their cause around sustainability?
Yeah, I think AI and sustainability is a really incredible topic because they are somewhat at odds, right? There's a push-pull. Is it malady? Is it medicine? We know, okay, so if we pull them apart, so AI for sustainability is, how do we employ AI to help companies become more sustainable? And you're like, well, how does that work? Right? And you can actually do that. I think a good example is in smart cities, for instance, using that solution. If you employ AI there in that digital twin, you're able to see where traffic congestion points are, right? And then using AI and digital twins, you can actually decrease the amount of congestion, which lowers the emissions. And therefore, the employment of AI in that instance actually is beneficial, right? In terms of emissions reduction. Sustainable AI is a whole different other category. It's like, how do we actually make it more green, more efficient in terms of energy, water usage, all that stuff. So it is really fascinating to watch these two fields grow. And then if you take also responsible AI, right? So responsible AI frameworks, which we also have, and then, have companies employ that to make sure that the data that they're getting is verified. It's ethical, it's transparent, it's following these rules and processes so that these AI hallucinations don't take place and disrupt the enterprise itself. So it's exciting field to be in, absolutely. And then with the advent of digital twins, which, as we know, is a virtual replica of a processor thing, we're able to run these countless simulations in the virtual world. We don't have to necessarily build the manufacturing plant in the physical world.
I've been reading a lot lately about the big giant AI companies out there looking to invest more in nuclear as an energy source. And Google last week announced that they were going to be building a very large facility, and they're signing contracts with the manufacturers right now to build a nuclear facility to support that, trying to get more to a clean energy. So you see a lot of advances there too. Now, you brought up something just a moment ago. It sounded like there's some companies either have internal or even external standards that they might follow to help them kind of measure how they're doing. Are they making improvements? Are they going the right direction? I remember in the electronics industry, talking to a number of companies who said it's super hard. We have thousands of our suppliers, and there isn't a well-defined standard for our kind of business to monitor our progress, to rate if we're, where we are when we audit ourselves, because there's really not a third-party auditor at that time that was involved. So they're saying, how do we set our own standards or work with an industry to create a standard that will allow us to know if we are making progress in these areas? Do you have any recommendations? Can you point them toward any particular kind of standard that different companies could follow?
Yeah, well, this is a really tough topic, right? And so each industry also is held to their own standards. So for like buildings, it's LEED certification. For sporting events, it's the Council for Responsible Sports certification. So, suggesting that, each industry look at, the what's going on for certifications, because those third-party certifiers do set up the frameworks, right? And then companies can help them achieve those goals. A lot of times what companies do is that they set these goals like net zero by 2040, right? But then they don't have the strategy to help them get there, or the know-how. So it is a bit different. I think for sustainable IT or green IT, there are green software coding practices, for instance, that are verified, third-party verified, and are kind of adopted across the board. So, and that goes across industry. And sustainable IT, just to, again, to explain that a little bit, is basically how do you make IT as energy and emission efficient as possible. So that could be anything from life cycle of IT equipment, actually measuring the workforce of your employees, greening of data centers, which we talked about, even greening of applications and software. So making sure it's lean or low code so that they're energy efficient. So there are standards there that can be explored.
So let's talk about climate risk, especially multinational companies that are having to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. I think digital twin technology and weather modeling is a great example of that. And then using information, both historical and then the AI, to predict what's going to happen in the future based on those models. So, for instance, we're able to predict now, where tornadoes might occur in the U.S., not just in the next year, but in the next 5 years, right? So it's not just in Tornado Alley; it's spreading in the Mid-Atlantic and the southern states as well. And that's all based on digital twins and AI modeling there. And then, so for a company that's operating, let's say, like, again, using tornadoes as an example, in those locations, they're able to then make the right decisions for them. Should they open up headquarters there? Or, if they are, how do you make your building tornado proof, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then employ all the safety measures there as well. So it's incredibly important to take that all into effect when planning for the future.
We hear a lot on the news right now about the changing patterns and the higher intensity of storms coming out of the Gulf. The heat of the water creates more intense storms, so that's changing weather patterns. I remember last year reading about the changing patterns of Tornado Alley, where it has moved down by several states where the intense tornadoes are now. I mean, all of that has to play havoc with companies. And I imagine, if they tried to ignore that in the past, they certainly can't do that anymore. And that becomes now critical for their planning, where they move things, where they prepare things, as you just talked about there. And one of the challenges with that, and this is an area that I'm quite close to for most of my career anyway, is supply chain management. When companies look at their suppliers, there's their big ones, their tier one suppliers that they do the most business with. But then those suppliers have their own, suppliers that help them build product. And sometimes those tiers can just continue. There's tier 3, tier 4, tier 5. And if a company really wants to monitor the impact of their supply chain, they really have to do some work, because they don't have a lot of visibility to tier 3, tier 4 groups of suppliers. They don't know if they practice good practices or if they employ slave labor. I mean, it's just hard to track all that. Do you have any advice for companies that they would like to be able to better monitor their supply chain, but they just haven't found the technique or strategy that makes that effective and efficient? What's your advice to them?
Yeah, I think, well, two things. I think one is employing digital twin models and platforms to create a model of that supply chain, right? And then using AI to identify the risk points and where there's the most exposure. And then running all these simulations, you can create a variety of plans and scenarios, right? Mm-hmm. And so, like, let's say you identify that the supplier in X country is using slave labor for their goods. Then the model will then suggest, or can suggest, alternative, mm-hmm. and have the plan A, B, and C already lined up for you. I think the other thing to think about is enterprises need to go from a take make waste linear model to, and they're moving toward that linear model to a circular model, which is, reduce, reuse, recycle. We all kind of are familiar with those R's and the circular pattern, but it's going even beyond that into regenerative. Right. And so not just reduce, reuse, recycle and looking at that, but how do you actually regenerate actively, replenish resources, and not just be a drain, right? So I think businesses are now looking towards that as the future, and hopefully moving away from that linear supply chain.
So when we do talk about regenerative environments and circular economies and sustainability and all this, one of the things that I know the C-suite will often ask themselves, they'll say, you know what, we've got to balance our KPIs, which are, our stakeholders and shareholders are asking for return on their investment. How do we balance how much we invest in these kinds of efforts with our responsibility to provide the returns on investment? What advice do you have for companies that are asking those kind of questions?
A lot of times these regenerative practices are self-funding, right? So Clever Energy is a great example. It's an energy management system that's deployed at companies that have large footprint. It could be one large physical footprint or a network of small footprints. And typically it's self-funded, and they're seeing returns on investment and savings beyond just the investment within 6 to 12 months, right? And so I think that really impacts the C-suite in a way that they weren't thinking about before. I think they were thinking, okay, saving the planet's nice, but how's that affecting my bottom line? Well, you can do both.
Well, that would certainly make that easy and would take that challenge away. So, as a futurist, I'm in the future of business team here at TCS, and we're always talking about the future in the context of 7 different domains: science, technology, societal, geopolitical, economic, philosophical, and environmental. So, and sometimes we see this collision, this convergence where certain issues impact all 7 of those. And let me just ask you, where is the solution to sustainability? In all of those 7, where do you think those answers lie?
I mean, that's like a trick question, Kevin. It encompasses all of the things you've touched upon. I mean, how could it not? I mean, a sustainable future touches everything, and technology is just like the enabler there, right? And so we look at the Sustainable Development Goals set by the UN, and like they touch every part of our community, our life, our planet, the countries, right? And so, there's no way to untangle it to just say, oh, it just affects one.
So we're right back to convergence. It touches on everything. Awesome. So let's talk about this. What does success look like for a company that's wanting to make these investments in being more sustainable? How do they know when they've won?
Well, they know when they won when there's no waste, right? And there's so I think a good example is, even looking at nature positive solutions and just understanding that in nature, there is no waste, right? And looking at those designs. So when our enterprises move to an example that's more nature-based, that's mimicking, biology and what's happening in science, I think that's when we're going to, and that sounds like pretty heavy and lofty, right? Of course. I mean, they're going to say, well, abundance, more net profit, but it's to look at the whole cycle there to make sure that the business will exist on. Businesses without a sustainable plan, right? Or, are not planning for a sustainable future will not exist. I mean, think about companies that didn't have a digital strategy. Oh, wait, you can't think of them because they don't exist anymore.
Wow.
Right. So there's no choice to adopt this sustainable framework for a better future.
So I was reading about sustainability strategies over the weekend, and it was interesting in the article I was reading. It really called out the fact that what we're talking about is sustainable business. So as you pointed out, If you're not sustainable, that means you won't be here. And so you need to look at sustainability from the perspective of your success, your product success, your employees' success, so you can recruit talent into your organization. You need to have products that the market wants. And if the market is telling you as well, I need sustainable products that are responsible, and the company's responsible, a responsible player in the world here by helping take care of it like everything else. So all of those things go into the practice of being just a good business practice, because if you're not sustainable, you just simply won't exist. It just survival of the fittest there. So let me ask the last question here today is let's first put on our futurist hats, Haley. So put on your futurist hat. How do you anticipate sustainability evolving over the next 10 years? How will it be different 10 years from now?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about regenerative ecosystems, and that's not a new concept. I think moving more to nature positive, nature-based solutions is going to be absolute at the forefront. Even looking at something like biomimicry, like what Biometrics International is doing, and what that really means is looking toward nature to help solve problems. And I think my favorite example of that is the invention of Velcro. So Velcro, which is an amazing technology, that was inspired by burrs. Like, so you walk through the woods and little burrs, the little seed pods all stick to you, right? That's Velcro, right? And so they looked at that and they're like, that works. You can't get those burrs off your pants, right? When you're walking through those woods there. Another example is honeycombs. So looking at honeycomb systems for insulation, right? Like the example of nature-inspired solutions for the modern world. And so we're seeing that now more in technology. And so when technology and companies who advance this, start to look at these nature-based solutions or inspirations based on nature, they're going to start to really progress things forward. And I think one of my favorite examples is looking at the morpho butterfly. And so this butterfly, if you're not familiar, it looks like iridescent, and it's fascinating when you look at it. It's actually it's made up of different scales that affect the wavelengths of light in different ways. So a technology company actually created this screen, this display screen, just like your computer. And as you know, that display screen usually needs a lot of energy to do backlighting. But if you use a Mirasol display technology, it actually they mimic the butterfly wings to affect the different wavelengths of light, so it actually becomes more energy efficient. And so these different advances, you could take a butterfly and affect your computer screen, are how things are going to keep advancing, I think, in the next 10 years.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Boy, you brought up memories. 2 weeks ago, our dog came in and it had all around its lips were these we call them Velcro seeds.
Yeah.
Like little seeds. And I think they must taste sweet because the dog gets into them all the time. And its entire lips are surrounded by those seeds. And then we're plucking them out of the hair around his lip. Not a fun experience for the dog or for us, but highly effective as a technique for transporting and distributing seeds widely.
It works. Nature works, right?
Oh, absolutely. There's so many things we can learn from the way anthills have built-in ventilations to, on and on. Amazing. Haley, thank you for joining us today and sharing insights from your part of the world.
Thank you so much.